And I'm going to read the question, and if either side wants to approach and look at it yourselves, you sure can.
Just on live for just
I'm going to read it
and then
as it
I'll read
is.
live.
Dr. Quintella testimony. Defense recall. Was his description with Doug based on his observation or what Ashley told him, i.e., domineering, super controlling, alpha male, over the top, not genuine? Anybody want to be heard first?
Any particular order?
No, sir.
I understand the question. What's the court's inquiry?
How do you, I'm listening for, I mean, I know in my mind how I think I'm going to respond, but I'm always going to give the parties an opportunity to be heard on
Sure. I think they should have Dr. Quintell's testimony read back to them, specifically because I asked Dr. Quintell if he reached any conclusions as a result of meeting and evaluating Douglas Benefield. And those were the conclusions that Dr. Quintell said he reached. It had nothing to do with my asking him if it was based upon anything Ashley Benefield told him. And I think unless that message is sent, unless that's clear to them, then I think it's a terrible prejudice to the defense.
I'm sorry, what's the prejudice to the defense?
What's the question?
No, what was the prejudice to the defense? If what happened?
Prejudice to the defense is that they're being misled.
If we do what?
If we do not read back their testimony, read back his testimony. That way it doesn't have to be the lawyer's comments, it's the testimony of the witness, it's objective.
Judge, I think there are a couple options. One is the standard use your memory. I don't know if the court can offer to have something read back when they don't ask for it, but if it is read back, it needs to be the direct and the cross.
All right, any final thoughts? Well, they clearly are not asking for a read back. They're asking a factual question. And I would direct both sides to standard jury instructions 4.3 and 4.4. 4.3 addresses answers to juror inquiries during deliberations. 4.4 is requests for readback or playback or transcript of testimony. We've all done this long enough. This is not a request for a readback. If they want to read back, they say we want to read back. They ask for testimony. It happens all the time. So at this point, the appropriate response is going to come from 4.3.
What kind of name? That's wonderful. Wow. Judge, my concern, Your Honor, is that we're just assuming they know that they can ask for a readback. And I don't know that that's a fair assumption.
In your 400 trials, when have you ever given when has a judge ever given an instruction, hey, by the way, you could ask for a readback?
No.
No, I haven't either.
No, but I don't know if they know that, and the question may be inarticulate, that maybe you could ask for a clarification of the question.
Your Honor, Judge, we don't object to 4.3. We ask that you.
I'm sorry?
We agree 4.3 is the right.
Yeah, that's the
Thank
correct
you.
response.
Yeah, if you needed us to agree, we do.
Okay. No, it's not even a debate. That's the correct response. It's 4.3.
Y'all, I'll talk more later. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. And if I try to talk with the court audio, it gets muffled. So I'm trying to listen and see what happens here, and then we'll talk. This is definitely one of those cases. Can you guys hear me? I just turned down. Hey, Teresa. Okay. This is one of those cases where there's a lot of context, and where, oh, Steve. Sorry, hold on. So this is one of those kinds of trials where it really is important to pay attention to the details, because there are real big nuances in, domestic abuse and domestic violence. And in practically any case where you have two people two toxic people in a relationship, they're both going to accuse the other of being an abuser.
Okay, I'm going to read you what I plan on telling them, and then you can comment on it how you want.
Well, you have to
This
learn how to
comes directly
differentiate.
from 4.3. Members of the jury, I have discussed your note with the attorneys. You have asked the following question, and then I'll read it. If I have not read your note correctly, please clarify your question in a follow-up note to the court. I am not able to answer this request because it asks the court to resolve a factual question that is within the province of the jury. Your decision must be based only on the evidence presented in the trial and the law that I have given you. If you have any other specific questions, please send another note and I will see if I can answer it.
No objection.
Object.
Object for the same reasons that you want me to affirmatively offer a readback.
Yeah,
Okay.
just so we're clear, I think that what created that question was the plethora of misrepresentations that the state delivered to them in their closing argument, and that's the reason why they've asked that question.
But you know what? Tell me his name. It's not Quintella.
Quintal.
Quintel,
Quin.
like William Tell, Quintel.
Okay, thank you. Because like a quinella is a bet at the track, isn't it?
I think so.
I think that's what they're.
Daily double.
It's like me trying to call the other witness the wrong name the whole time.
Keyless.
All right, Madam Clerk, I'm going to have to send this to you because I don't have a printer. Yeah, I'm sure.
So if you listen to that, they basically decided to tell the jury, sorry, jury, you have to decide that on your own. That's a question of fact, and that's your job as a finder of fact. So
Yeah.
the whole idea of whether Ashley was abused was never, ever, ever answered. They're painting her as a victim of domestic violence. The only thing we know that Doug admitted to ever doing in text messages, and some are in the chat are saying that this was debunked, but I remember seeing in the text messages that he admitted to punching a dog and that he admitted to shooting a gun into the ceiling. That was 3 years ago. That was well before all of this. And then he said in text messages, I went to the brink, I fucked up, I got help, and I've changed. And there's literally not 1 ounce of evidence showing that he was ever physically abusive to her or violent to her after that. None whatsoever. In the meantime, she is running circles around him to make sure he doesn't get access to their child. Hyperbaric chamber treatment. I may be missing something. Death by chocolate. Anyway, if you really look at the evidence, there's literally not 1 ounce of evidence that says that she was actually a victim of domestic violence. The only evidence are all the complaints he made. Now, there is such thing as as emotional abuse, but now we have to talk about what the actual charges are here and what actually happened. She is saying that she was so in fear of her life that the only way she could defend herself was by using a gun, bodily harm. You know, she was so in fear for her life that she needed to use deadly force to prevent herself from being harmed. But there was, that was a terrible thing to do, Maxie Doodle. Nobody's disputing that, but that's
Do
the
you
thing.
guys want me to broach the subject of food as well?
I really wish people would get off the notion that in these intimate relationship situations, that if one person is an abuser, the other person is a complete angel and vice versa. No, it's rarely, if ever, that way. So yeah, he did do that. She actually killed him. I would say that's more of a POS. We have to have some situational understanding here, and we have to be able to
And y'all can have a seat
address.
wherever you want. You don't have to sit anywhere particular. All right, y'all can have a seat. Welcome back. Members of the jury, I have discussed your note with the attorneys. You have asked the following question. 7/29/24, Dr. Quintella testimony, defense recall. Was his description with Doug based on his observation or what Ashley told him, i.e. domineering, super controlling, alpha male, over the top, not genuine, signed one of the jurors? If I have not read your note correctly, please clarify your question in a follow-up note to the court. I am not able to answer this request because it asks the court to resolve a factual question that is within the province of the jury. Your decision must be based only on the evidence presented in the trial and the law that I have given you. If you have any other specific questions, please send another note and I will see if I can answer it. Also, I don't want to know what's been discussed. However, it's getting to be almost 6 o'clock. If you want us to order food, it is not, it's not steak and lobster. But we can order some pizzas and get some sodas and have them and brought to the room. If you want that to happen, also send a note through the deputies. All right, you may retire to continue your deliberations. All right, you can have a seat. The jury is out.
Tia, to answer your question about do I think the state did their job? I think they did a reasonable job, but let me just put it this way: if I was the family of the victim in this situation, I would not have been super happy with the state and the way they handled it. I wouldn't be super happy.
Oh, yeah.
Do I think they accomplished what they needed to do? They may have. I think they could have been much more persuasive, much more organized. And I also think they showed a great deal of insensitivity and ignorance about the idea of domestic violence, and they came across as callous and somewhat insensitive to the defendant in questioning, because she is, presumed guilty, right? And I'm sorry, she is presumed innocent until proven guilty, but they talk to her like she was guilty. You need to treat a witness on the stand, especially if they're the defendant, especially if they are claiming abuse, you need to treat that very, very respectfully. So no, the tone, the tone on the stand, that the prosecutor took with her on the stand was not, I didn't like it at all. So that's why I'm answering the general question. Do I think the state did their job? I think they did a reasonable job, but I wouldn't be happy with the way they handled the trial if I was the victim or the victim's family. Do I think, because what they're ultimately trying to prove is premeditated murder. They didn't drill that home for me. They didn't drill that home for me. So I don't see that there was any, I was just picking through the case myself, meaning just listening myself, not necessarily at the either side's arguments, and just not seeing any evidence that she was the victim of domestic abuse to the extent that it required her to use deadly force in self-defense. So, hey, Maxie Doodle, here's the thing. It is, I see what you're saying, okay? But you can be a victim of coercive control of another person and still be guilty of murdering them. Okay? So even if I'm a perfect angel of a partner, and my husband has been brutally physically abusive to me, it's still I can't justify doing premeditated murder on him. It's not okay to do that. I could maybe do a self-defense claim, but now we have to look back on the actual patterns of behavior in this relationship. Okay? And the actual patterns of behavior in this relationship are that we see that he had an absolute anger and rage management problem. It caused a big problem in the relationship. He said, I need to get help, and he apparently got help for that. And we don't see any evidence whatsoever. And she admitted on the stand. That he he never physically abused her. He never struck her. He never hit her. He never kicked her. Okay. So that means that you have to now convince me that it was years of emotional torture that led her to believe that when she invited him to come over to the house that day, that she believed that he was coming, with some sort of plan to kill her, or that he could get so tied up in a rage, so spun up into a rage at any second that it was justifiable to kill him. There was a point in time, Sharon, where he testified. She was asked. I think it was a period of time, maybe since that time. She testified that he hit her that day. Okay. But before that time, she said he never did that. Before that time, right? Is that what you're saying he testified to? Because yeah, she said he hit her that day. But then when she was asked to demonstrate how he hit her and where he hit her, she couldn't replicate it. It was as if it didn't happen. And then the photo that was taken of her face does not show swelling and bruising. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Yeah, she said that he hit her the day she shot him. Right. So, what I see here, if you really, 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 look closely, watched this trial closely, and watch the differences in behavior between these two people. She was using the court system over and over and over and over again to get to a certain end. She tried to get the police to arrest him in court, in family court. She kept him believing that they were going to be moving to Maryland together. I know separately, but together. Maxie Doodle, I am not convinced of that story at all. Not in the least. If all of that really happened in such an earth-shattering way that she could barely stand there and tell the story in court, then she would have remembered the exact aggressive stance he took, the exact movement, the literal minute by minute, second by second, inch by inch movements that led up to her pulling that trigger. She couldn't explain it. Instead of, remember, she's on trial for murder. It's on her, and she put herself on the witness stand. And when she is asked point blank, well, how was he standing? So first she doesn't remember, and then she starts crying. Okay. By the time you get to a point in trial, I'm telling you, as a trauma survivor, okay, as a trauma survivor, by the time you get to the point where you're telling that story and you're defending yourself in a courtroom, you are not so triggered by the story that you can't tell the story. You're shaking uncontrollably, and you lose all possessiveness over yourself, all ability to tell a coherent story about what happened from second to second to second to second to second. And I will tell you, I was on the fence. I was on the fence about guilty or not guilty until I saw her testify. And then she got up and testified, and it was all over for me. It was all over, because she seemed much, much more invested in trying to draw sympathy through an incredibly emotional telling of the story, rather than convincing us of the truth through the truth of the story. We couldn't get to the truth because she couldn't She either couldn't remember it or she would break down crying and just saying, oh, but I was scared. I was scared. I was scared. Look, I have an immense amount of sympathy for people. I have an overactive sensitivity chip. Okay. It's overactive. When I sense that people are hurting, when I see them hurting, I immediately begin to hurt for them and I start crying. I didn't see an ounce of that in her. She was not convincing whatsoever. And I know there's a lot of things being said in chat that I haven't paid attention to, but she reminded me a great deal of Amber Heard, because they're both of them, same situation. They have filed for divorce. They have been moving this case through the court for years, right? They've told this story over and over and over and over and over again. And you want me to believe that now when you're telling the story in court, when it matters the most, you're just going to break down and not know what stance he was taking? Lynn, I think you're amazing. In this case, I have to disagree. This sounds exactly what Micah Miller went through before she committed blah. Was she supposed to end up? I'm going to, I will say this. I have deliberately stayed away from the Micah Miller case until I can save time to do a deep dive, because I can tell that is just a very, very, very heartbreaking and sad case. So I don't know anything about that. Maxi Doodle, when I look at Ashley, I see Brian Laundrie. Okay. That is the personality I see. When you see the way that Brian Laundrie treated Gabby and talked about Gabby, you see the same thing. Hello, Mystery. You see the same thing in Ashley, in the way she talks about Doug. Okay. That everything was his fault. He's the abuser. He has to do, she's the nice guy. She's just the withering ballerina. And this is Ashley talking. He's the scary, scary, abusive guy. Literally none of that shows up in text. And then you got Gabby and Brian. And Gabby, I know that case like the back of my hand, okay? Gabby was a complete and full-on, utterly immersed victim of battered girl syndrome, a partner syndrome. You know why? She believed what Brian told him. She believed that she was an abuser and that she did, drive him batty and blah, 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 blah. Right? She believed it. So when the police pulled them over, in Utah, the first thing she says is, I'm sorry. It's my fault. That is a very, very, thank you for saying that, Sharon. Please like and subscribe. That is a very typical response of a completely beaten down, controlled victim of narcissistic abuse. Okay? But now we see that Utah law enforcement agency, those law enforcement officers were fired and reprimanded and that law enforcement agency and DA have law enforcement agency has been sued. They have had to have a major overhaul of their entire outlook on this because of the Gabby Petito case, specifically because of the Gabby Petito case and the balls they dropped on that one. Okay. So, the thing about criminals and very manipulative people is that they are very, very smart. They're very cunning. And I see Ashley as the type of person. She is clearly a very smart young woman. In many ways, right? But so she studied all the things that were successful and the things were not. But she wanted things to be a certain way. And when they didn't turn out to be the way she wanted them, what was the word that the prosecutors were using? It's kind of a legal term for the jury, like with a malice heart or something like that. Anyway, one thing that I've said this before, and I'll address it today because I've seen a couple people mention this in the chat. Why would she invite him over if she was scared? We need to figure out a better way to have that conversation, because it's already been established, y'all, that people in these abusive relationships will go back to the abuser over and over and over again. It doesn't mean that they don't love the abuser. It doesn't mean that they don't have feelings, or when the abuser is not being abusive, that they aren't fun, or that they aren't, there's a reason that they're together. There's some sort of bond there, right? So, especially when you have a child together, you want things to be peaceful. You want the child to have a good relationship with the other person, and you want to have a relationship where you don't feel like where you're not holding back from talking shit about the other person. You want things to be good in the hood, right? So sometimes we overlook the fact that we're being abused for the sake of, let's make sure they have a good relationship with our child. What Ashley is contending here is that she was trying to keep her child safe from him, and she apparently called CPS on him a few times, like reported him to CPS a few times, and all of the claims came in unfounded. So anyway, I know I'm rambling on and on, but the point being is that this is a really, really good case for picking through the very complicated dynamics of interfamilial abuse and, narcissistic abuse and coercive control and domestic violence and all of that. I'm just looking through the chat right now because I was rambling and yeah, I do want to make something make something really, really clear too. I'm not saying that no one would be crying or feeling emotions on the stand. They wouldn't be feeling and acting out the emotions that she was on the stand. Okay. The emotions that she was acting out did not ring true. They did not ring authentic at all. So like, I could see it is overwhelming and nerve-wracking to sit in front of a big group of people and on TV and to say all those things in front of them. And so you're going to cry, maybe get tears of embarrassment and, flustered, maybe a little bit flush, right? Because you're also telling a very personal part of your story to somebody, to like and to potentially the whole world, right? But what she did was tell the story as if it was happening right then. So I feel like this is what happened, okay? I feel like what happened is she looked up she obviously looked up, co-parenting with an abusive spouse, blah, blah, blah. She probably also looked up symptoms of PTSD or symptoms of this, right? And when they described PTSD, they describe it as it, people with PTSD, when they're triggered, they feel as if that thing is happening to them all over again. It becomes to them like in a flashback, right? Okay. So it's like she took that idea. Oh, it's a flashback. Okay, it's a flashback. So I got to act it out like, oh my God, it's happening right now. Ah! No, that's not what happens. Okay. You feel that way in your body, but you know it's not happening. So you're sitting there going, fuck, I'm feeling this again. Now I got to figure out how not to display the fact that I'm feeling this right now. Okay. So for me, here's an example. Anytime I see anybody in the open having sex, I am immediately triggered. Okay. That's not your problem. That's not anybody else's problem. Nobody else should have to deal with the fact that I get triggered by seeing anybody having sex. Okay. Anybody. So so I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, there's people having sex. We have to go. Ah! I'm going to sit here and hide the fact that I have this feeling because I know it's not normal and I know it's just me. Okay. She's acting as if she has to pretend like she's feeling the same ways she was feeling in the moment that it happened. And that is not what it's like. It's your brain telling you it's happening, and then you're having to suppress that horrible, horrible feeling of knowing that your brain is telling you it's happening, but you know it's not. And you're in a place where you might be in public and you have to suppress the fact that you know that thing isn't happening, but you feel like it. And now I hope that helps you understand it a little bit more. So you are going to feel a way on the stand and you might cry, you might shudder, but you're not going to act out every single feeling and try to convince people so hard that you're feeling that way that then you can't remember specific details. Because if it was that traumatic and if it was that horrible that it produces that much of a response in you telling it in a courtroom after 4 years, then you have a very, very good recollection of what happened. Well, then how did he hit you? I don't know. I don't know. How did he hit you? Was it closed fist or open? I don't remember. I don't know. Okay. Then he took a fighting stance. Okay, show me what the fighting stance looks like. It was like, I don't know. Okay, well, you see, so the mechanics of it just don't work out for me, and her explanations of abuse don't work out for me. There's the only evidence that we see of him being violent are the dog punching incident that he admitted to. That was several years before. So that's where I'm at with it. So I hope what I'm gonna do here now, all right, is I'm gonna keep this stream open and going while we're waiting for while we're doing jury watch, but I'm not gonna be on stream anymore. I'm just gonna have it like that, okay? And we can still hang out and talk in the chat while we're waiting for a verdict, or I'll keep watching to see if a question comes up. And I'll try to come back on if there's a question, we can talk about it. But otherwise, I will come back when we have a verdict. And it's very unlikely that there's a verdict today, I would say. It's pretty unlikely, but I'll keep looking at it. You're welcome, Sparkles. And Chopper, I know you were talking about your experience in chat, and I know there's a lot of other people that have had similar experiences in chat. My heart goes out to each and every single one of you, every single one of you who is hearing this now, who will hear this later. My heart goes out to you for whatever trauma you were put through at any time. Seriously. And if you haven't gotten any sort of treatment or help for it, I sincerely, sincerely implore you to do that. I thought I didn't need help. I was like, that happened to me. I know it happened to me. Okay, whatever. It doesn't change me. It doesn't. Nope. I knew it, I was so wrong. But you don't know till you know, right? So anyway, okay. I will I'll be here. I'll see you all in the chat, and I'll come back on when we have a verdict. Thank you all very much for being here. All right, y'all. Well, it is nearly. Oops. Sorry, I had to close my own tab. It is nearly 8 o'clock Eastern time. I am highly doubtful that they will be coming to a verdict tonight. So I'm going to close this stream down, but I'll still be on the lookout just in case, because the window is still open on law and crime. They haven't come back and said that they're going home or anything like that. So, and there are really no updates on Twitter. So what I'm going to do is I'll keep monitoring, but I'm going to close this stream down for now, for tonight. And if we don't have a verdict tonight, I will be live early tomorrow morning for more verdict watch. And I'll start up another stream where we can verdict watch. Alrighty. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up. Thank you for your kind and loving participation. And thank you for being kind everywhere you go. I'm just gonna thank you. I'm gonna assume the gratitude that I can have. Good to see you, Rachel. So yeah, I'm just closing down the stream because it's 8 o'clock there, and I basically said I would close this down at this time, and so I'm doing it. So I will see you either later tonight if there's a verdict, or tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, and we can keep chatting away. Again, thanks for being here, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.